Session 2. We literally just finished up. They just left. It is now midnight. Had a blast, and I'm now decompressing because there's no way I can go to sleep right now. So I'm doing this little recap here with you guys to wind it down from the session we literally just had. So, first thing I want to start off with saying is I have never been more sold on the stance of if one player's missing, you got to keep playing, because we had one of the players, Odin, was not able to show up. And yeah, which was totally fine. Like life happens, stuff happens, this is the second session. So I was like, I had a moment, and I talked to everybody at the table where normally I would just like, yeah, we keep playing, right? But it's the beginning of the session, and they haven't made it through basic training yet, and they're all part of the little, they're going through their military training thing, and they're about to have the big trials, and this is the big thing. It comes down to this, and I didn't want them to miss it, so I was like, but the show goes on. You got to keep going. So I'll have a breakdown thing with him. I'll get him up to speed, catch him up with everything. But it was so worth it, because after it was done, it was like we're all like dying laughing, just had a blast, right? So like that blast would have never happened if I had decided like, let's play a board game instead, something that's not D&D, So I'm sure it would have been fun. We would have played some games, but I'm even more so heavily taking a stance on, you gotta play. It would not have been fair to the other three players, regardless of whatever situations happen, which is a lot of times completely understandable. That's not that's not an issue. Players, life's gonna happen. People aren't gonna be able to make every single session. I'm sure I'm gonna have some time where something comes up, with a 1-year-old. That's gonna happen, right? But if one player's missing, you gotta keep playing. You gotta have a group of 4 too, so one player missing was let down to 3. But anyway, so getting into session 2, Rift of Nations, here we go. If you missed out on anything, I'll have links in the description down below. If you like all this kind of stuff, you want to see more of these videos a month ahead of time, you can see these on Patreon. I have a whole list for all my patrons there. Take an update and see kind of what's going on with all this stuff. Early access. So anyway, here we go. The couple days before the trials, the first session was all the kind of like getting the stage set for kind of like, you are in the military, you're working your way up through the ranks. You had boot camp at the beginning, then there was the academy where you're kind of going through stuff and learning all the stuff. You're learning about history, you're learning about how to refine your craft of combat, all this kind of stuff. Love it. And then now they are about a week out from the trials, and I wanted to run a couple scenes with them. And this is, I think they've responded very well to this. There's some great character development to these little scenes that I have, that I literally throw them into the fire with another character. I put them down in front of another NPC, set the stage, and then we go. And it's just getting them really used to role playing and playing their character. And there's some really cool moments that happened this session that really let me see some of that work pay off. And what I mean by work is I'm doing a lot of time spending with this role play stuff and setting the stage for their characters and getting them comfortable with other types of characters, then with each other. Then we play combat and we do some stuff, and then we go back to roll, just kind of get them into their character and stuff. And then we can have the full spectrum and go around with a lot of stuff. Because, spoiler alert, this entire session had no combat, but we did have a skill challenge that was a creatively engineered skill challenge that felt like combat. But anyway, so we had a little scene with Clara and Karen, one of the NPCs. That's a Karen, like their personality type that the players chose was Karen. That's how they describe the personality. Anyway, so she had a little interaction with Clara and her cat, and it was just kind of like a thing that they talked about the different boys in the military and like who's going with what, because I'm trying to shake them up. I'm trying to kind of ask them about all the different stuff going on, like what are you trying to think, and like touch on different social interactions that we humans I feel like I'm a robot when I say it like that, a bunch of different social interactions that we see all the time, and I want to put it into this world so that they can think of these NPCs as actual people. And she's like, why are you trying to talk about boys like that? We're in the we're doing this, we're in the army right now, like what are you doing? And so they had a little bit of a back and forth with that. Darius had some interesting stuff with his magic not working the way that it should, so that was interesting. Some clues as to him not mastering his magic and diving into the dream aspect of it. And I gave him some sort of dream nightmare situation he had to give him some clues on some stuff of how he can manipulate his magic better, because it's his patron. He is a warlock. Spoiler alert. Not really a spoiler alert for you guys, because this is a DM facing story that I'm giving you guys from my perspective. The players think he's a wizard because he uses a book and stuff to cast spells, but he's actually a warlock, and a lot of his magic comes from dreaming type stuff, and he's not tapping into that as much as he was when we were talking about our pre-session stuff. So I want to keep him accountable and have some dream stuff going on. So we'll see how that goes. And then Odin, the player who wasn't there, how I ran the player that wasn't there, by the way, is he wasn't there. So I have a little video chat thing, and every time I did something with his specific character, I took my phone out, I pressed record on the video thing. It's a Marco Polo. It's a video app. We have a group, or a just between me and him, so I'd send little snippets of me in the game. Eventually, whenever these games are streamed, I will just tell him to watch the video, which that would be really interesting. That sounds like a really great solution there, but I'm not doing that yet. Working on it. And then, so basically I just said what kind of happened. They had a conversation about this topic and then moved on. And I will have that afterwards with the session one-on-one with Odin. And then we can fill in the rest of the group if anything cool happened. If not, it's just character development for Odin. Then in general, not to go through every single one of these social interactions, I just gave him a bunch of different social interactions with different NPCs that are in the army. Q got to talk with Marlowe, who's this little downtrodden gnome guy, abjured of magic type person, who thanked him for standing up to Oleander at the end of session 1. He had this big moment where he took on the bully and kind of took a stand. Clara talked with another person, another one of the girls from the military situation, and they did like a truth or dare thing, and she chose dare. So her dare was to go prank at night, and she like stuck his fingertips in water. Just a classic prank, just to keep things light and fun. This is the start of the session. I just want to do some fun roleplay stuff, right? I got Darius and Petra, another little scene together that had a really cool moment of them kind of exchanging some gifts between each other, and he taught her how to like go do this cooking thing, and then he wanted her to show him how to heal, and so he cut his hand. And how I run magic in my games is she can't just walk up and cast cure wounds, and magic is perfect, and no matter what the circumstances, magic just works always. That feels weird and dumb. So she had to make a check under duress to try and see if she could cast the healing spell. Oh wait, I'm sorry, I had to. And then she was just so flustered and wasn't able to. So it was a kind of a cool way to show them that healing magic doesn't always just work like that, right? That's a whole nother thing. I'll have to do a video on my homebrew magic system that I'm using in this campaign. But Odin had another scene with Billy, and they were informed that in the military, there's 40 people that are in this little military situation. Half of them, the bottom 20, are going to get cut, but the top 4 get to pick one person to keep. Just that they've formed a bond with, that they'd want to see in their thing. So the top 4 cadets in this military situation get to pick one person that does not get cut. So I thought that was interesting. And they each had paired up with someone that was doing very well. So I thought it worked very fittingly for the story. And there's another 4 that are selected by the generals of the higher up, the officers. And one of the officers really had a bond with Q. So this was a great way of me being able to say, yeah, a lot of the army gets like half of the bottom half gets cut. But somehow the 4 of you, even though y'all are at the bottom, somehow y'all got chosen because of other people's success, not your own. So it's again kind of downplaying them and really setting them up for some success, which did happen at the end of the session. Spoiler alert, or it's coming. So then they had a couple more role play scenes. The first round did 2 rounds through everybody to kind of give everyone a little bit of scene there, and then we go to the final skirmishes before the trials. All I did here was I gave each of them a small little scene with somebody, and then ding ding ding, there's a fight between them and somebody else. And this was set up to be the final skirmish placements for the trials and stuff. They were going to get paired up randomly with somebody else, and they're going to get put into a ring and have a 1-round combat situation and see what happens, right? And I said this comes down to 1 roll. All this is you're going to describe what happens in combat and what you're trying to do to fight this specific type person. And then the DC is 18, which is very high for a level 1 party. Real like timeout for dungeon masters. Like if I wanted them to be successful, like a DC 12 would be kind of like, okay, yeah, like that feels like a right thing to do for like a easy situation for them. DC 14 is going to be like, okay, all right, here we go. Let's see what happens. You know, they're probably going to be okay, but let's see what happens. DC 14, DC 16. Okay. That's going to be a little hard. DC 18 is all right. This, if you're probably not going to win this, right? DC 18. So I had a DC, and 20 would be too high for this, in my opinion. They're probably at most rolling a plus 6 or so on their dice, so they'd have to roll like they only have like a 25% chance, or sorry, 30% chance to succeed. That's a little you know what I'm saying? So I had a DC 18, and I told them that beforehand. I said the DC for this is 18. You're gonna make one check and see if you win this little one-on-one skirmish, because I didn't want to do one-on-one rounds of combat that takes so long. Like no, this is no need for that. One roll to rule them all. So Darius had a little talk with Petra, and then Paxton, this big like football like shield and big morning star flail type situation, comes over, and he's like talking. He's like putting down Darius and like, hey Petra, you need to like. And so he's like dogging on Darius and like, hey Petra, check it out. So then like it pissed off Darius, and it was really cool to see Darius's character. I hit a nerve. I hit a nerve on there. He likes Petra and all this kind of stuff. So I was kind of playing off of the relationships that had been formed from the first, you know, session 0 and session 1. And he was like dead staring him in the eyes. So they walked into the center of the ring, and I was like, all right, what do you do? He's like, I'm just going to try to restrain him with vines and embarrass him. I want it because like Darius is like a basically like a druid type magic, nature magic. He's like, I want to get vines up from the ground and just hold him in place and embarrass him so he can't move. And I'm just gonna like keep doing that. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, here we go. So he made a roll, and he rolled a natural 18 plus like 5 or 6 or whatever. So I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, describe to me. He's like, he's trying to break through in the vines. Like he breaks through the vines, and vines come back, and he hacks through those, and more vines, and then like he just literally embarrassed the dude. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So it was a really cool moment to see Darius, who has been very cautious with magic, very uncertain of his magic, to like really come out in this very intense way. So that was really cool to see that side of the spectrum there. And that also layers some stuff there for maybe some more intense moments in the future. What's going on? I don't know. And then Q fought Oleander, which is the person he had at the end of session 1, his arch nemesis, the big bully of everything. They held him up by the throat. This was Q's chance, or it's a rematch of Q versus Oleander. I was like, but the DC's 18, so this is gonna be rough to be able to do. And then we described this whole thing about Q. The first time whenever Q went into combat, he rushed in too early, and then he got kind of, you know, reprimanded for that. Like, look, you can't just run in like that. Like, you got to be able to think more. And then he's like, okay. So then when the combat started, he's like, I just want to stare at him. And then like the person he was up against was like able to set up all this stuff and then do an attack, and he waited too long. So it was cool to see him role play his combat decisions through going in too soon, now waiting too long. And so he's just trying to figure out this whole tactics of combat. He gets destroyed by Oleander. He rolls like a 2 or something, and Oleander wipes the floor with him, does some force bomb explosion, and shoots him out of the ring. Crazy ending done. So now it's 1-1. They're now back to the finals, and I have Oleander in the final part where they're going to fight against them. So we'll see who wins overall. And then Clara fights against this dual wielding dwarf named Ralph, and she's her thing is she's like he's like running circles around the thing. She's trying to lead him and throw her oh my god, what's it called? It's a big circle blade that's like this, but you hold it in your hand, there's like blades all around it. She throws that, misses entirely. He completely beats her. She loses. And then the final one, Odin, I rolled for him at the table. I rolled just a flat out in the open, and he rolled a 5, so he loses to Dionysus, which is this big guy with basically totem barbarian with this huge totem as a weapon, like a tree trunk. Bats him out of the ring as well. He loses. So really, Darius is the only person that won. Everyone else lost. I was thinking everyone would lose, but hey, Darius had a little shining little star on him right there. Then we went into the squad selection stuff, and we went into the big thing where like they met the Commander Broadstone, because it goes Commander Broadstone, Captain Kitchener, Lieutenant Grant, and then this is them, right? So they got to meet this guy right here. Super hyped up guy. It was cool to kind of role play him and give them a little taste of this guy they'll eventually see, because I want to do that. I want to sprinkle in other things further down the line so they can see these people and they feel like they're alive and part of this big thing. Even just me showing, I probably role played him for maybe 50 seconds or something, but just having him be there feels like it's going to feel like it's more of a big intricate system, because it's an army and you should have things like that happen. So basically I brought out Captain Kitchener, who's just a straight up, like, she's a bitch. So there you go. And she came out and she was basically ripping everyone a new one. I was like literally making like it was a roast session. It was a roast session, and me as the dungeon master could write a roast session about the players and what had happened so far. So the first four, she's like Zoe, Billy, Petra, and Oleander. Y'all are the top four. Super awesome. Everybody else, and then she starts roasting other people. I threw out NPCs about like the dumb stuff that they had happened or that they failed at, and then I went through the four players at the end, and I was like, you can't even fight with weapons, and you're all over the place, and you just got blinded, breathed in a bunch of poison. Like, I just broke down all the things about them not doing anything successful the whole time so far, and just gave them a little roast session. But I feel like I want to do that not to make fun of them, but because I want them to feel like a little bit like that. I want to feel them to feel a little bit downtrodden on. So whenever they do rise above it, because I want that for them so bad, it's going to feel so much better. And again, this is a pulse check with your players. You got to know how to do it right, and make sure it's funny, and make sure it's not attacking them as a person, like it's like decisions they made as a player playing that character. It's like the character of what happened based off the role. So keep it separated from, like, you know, things like that. But anyway, that was hilarious. They were getting a kick out of that as far as like the roast session at what I did at each of the players. So that was fun. And then Lieutenant Grant took over after that, escorted them to their bunks and everything, to their little, like the little camp, what would you call that? Their barracks or whatever. And then they had to choose a squad leader. They chose Darius. Darius is a squad leader now. And then I explained the trials. So this trials is a point system. 100 points is a perfect score. There's 3 rounds. The first round is capture the flag, which has an offense round and a defense round, and you score points while you're on each round. Then there's a social encounter round, and then there's a combat round, and you get points for each of those. I have that detailed on my Notion. Here we go. This is the Notion thing. So this is the thing I just ran down here of all the different stuff on my Notion that I had. This is literally what I look at whenever I dungeon master. I have this thing, and I go through here and I click these little checkpoints every time on the way through, and we keep on keeping on, right? And then we get down here for the placements, and then now this is the capture the flag. So boom, capture the flag. You have the flag in the center, you have a main entrance right here, you have the forest entrance, and you have the water entrance. So main entrance, forest, water, and then they can choose. And basically, to not do the full-blown breakdown of what happened, how this game works, it's a skill challenge. There's 3 rounds to it, and you can score. If you succeed at the DC's 14, if you succeed at the check, you get a point. If you fail at the check, you lose you gain a failure point. So there's success points and failure points. Failure points are basically the other team scoring a point. It's just a way to keep track of if they're overall winning or overall failing, right? So you get points on both ends, top and bottom. If you succeed by more than 5, that's 2 points. If you fail by less by more than 5, that's 2 points. Nat 20 is a 3, and Nat 1 is a 3. Failure points, whatever. You get the whole big picture. You are trying to have more failure points than you do. You're trying to have more success points than you do failure points at the end of this whole thing. So round 1. It's a skill challenge. Describe how you're kind of charged up to this thing. Like what things are each of you doing? You can't make the same check twice in a row. So if you're going to do some sort of swimming athletics check to get through here, if you're going to do some sort of stealth check to get through the forest, are you going to do like, what are you just going to freaking sprint in here? Initiative check. Sure. Whatever you want to do for your checks or where you're coming from. They all decided to go from the forest, and they wanted to really scale up this wall and get the flag. If you get the flag, that's 5 points, by the way. And then, yeah, there's some more rest of the rules here as far as all that goes. If you want to pause it, you can kind of see all that. But they rolled for it, and they were on offense first. So there's that. And then one side note there is that I said, like, do a coin toss for who chooses. and then they lost the coin toss, which then means I have to choose, which then felt weird as a dungeon master. So if I could go back, I probably would just have them roll a d20, high as their offense, low as their defense, and that's how we would do it. And they're in control of the dice instead of me. It felt weird them losing the roll and me choosing. So anyway, so they met their opponents, which were Oleander, oh my god, the same guy showing back up. Marlowe, the little defensive spellcasting dwarf. Staten, who hates Odin from the throwing incidents from session 1, and Patricia, who's friends with all of them. But yeah, that's the kind of their little squad, and they had some plans that I planned out beforehand of what they are going to be doing each round. But basically how it worked is I had an offensive plan for each of them, and I had a defensive plan for each of them as far as what I did. Now, to explain what I did here, is how this worked is while they were on offense, they were all in the forest, and so I was like, all right, so you don't really see anything, and I had to make a perception check to see if they see who's where, to see if they can see like where the defense set up, and they didn't really see anything, so they had to really go blind. All right, first round skill challenge, what are you guys doing to navigate through this forest? And they can all do whatever they want. Some of them pick stealth checks, some of them wanted to do some sort of like survival check to kind of like try to move through. Am I able to? And they were really trying to go for the survival description, so I gave them that. And then they kind of moved their way through here. 1 success, 3 failures, and the 1 success was only barely, and this was so it was not starting off the best. Then the guy that was up here, so now it's my turn, right? So they did a turn to kind of interact with the battlefield, and then now it's my turn to kind of say what they do. And I am trying to give them pieces to interact with. As a dungeon master, I'm trying to give them things to do in this skill challenge, because if I just sit there and do nothing, then they're just I'm going to climb a wall now. Okay, I climbed the wall. Okay, I'm going to grab the flag. Oh, okay, I got the flag. Okay, cool. Super lame. So I had Oleander trigger an explosion under the bottom there, and they kind of flew back. And if they ever failed at any point during this, they have disadvantage on their next roll. So they're trying not to fail, because if they get disadvantage on the next roll, that's going to affect their points roll towards the skill challenge. So I have a round to kind of like mess with them and stuff, and like do some things and throw some curveballs at them, right? But then the other players that I had were coming in from over here and over here, and they chose all in the forest. So that was kind of an interesting decision. And I locked in where my people were being placed, because that was another thing I didn't say about the rules is when you start, you can start off anywhere. Like the 4 of them could choose 1 here, 1 there, or all here, however they wanted to do it. So I put 2 here, 1 here, and 1 here as far as defending the sides. So all of them going here, the 2 I put over here and the 1 I put over here had to spin around just to get over towards the forest. So that was kind of a cool part, or lucky part on their end. And then basically what happens was they try and climb the wall. The defense tries to break down the wall, and then the nature warlock tries to get the vines in the wall to hold it in place. There's a shield that comes down. Odin punches through the player that was not there, that I was role playing. I waited because they kind of ran to like, I don't really know what to do. I was like, I'm going to punch through the wall. So he punched through the tower, because I did describe earlier that the tower is kind of brittle and stuff. Punch through the tower, gets onto the inside, and then cue the robot arm tech Warforged person busts through the center, grabs the flag. They score 5 points. Bang, done, right? That was over the course of 3 rounds. So that was a very fast forwarded version of it. But it was cool to see them kind of work together and try and see, how can I help each other? I'm going to support the wall with the vines. I'm going to give them some handholds so they can climb up the thing. And I'm going to try and then the artificer attacked the people at the top of the stairs. And so it was cool to see them kind of try and come up with some outside the box ideas of ways to use their abilities to do a capture the flag game. And they got the flag done. So then second round goes to defense. They all kind of set up their positions. 1 here, 1 there, 1 there, 1 in each lane. And then they had Odin right here at the bridge as like a gatekeeper. And just so happens, I had chosen this beforehand. You can even, I can scroll down and show you. I had offense, there's defense, main gate, and then this guy was at the water gate. So I had the stealthy rogue person here, and then the 3 of them were right here coming in down the center, real hot and heavy. The plan was they had Patricia, who's this big, super strong woman artificer with a big hammer. She was going to be the main center running back, whatever, down the center. The mage was going to put a shield around her to protect her. Oleander was going to throw a force grenade to launch her up into the top. That was like the big plan, right? But they had to break down the wall first. So there's a big, huge plan of a combos that they had to do, and the players started to see it coming. They were asking questions. I gave them some insight checks to see if they could figure out what their plan was. They figured out what their plan was, and they tried to stop them. But meanwhile, I had Staten coming in the back door to come up the top. So they collectively put doors down to stop them. They blew open the offense on this side, the 3 NPCs over here blew open the door on this side, and they had a shot to the flag, and they had 1 round to stop them. And so they disabled each as much stuff as they could. Again, these are skill checks, and then based on those skill checks that they had, based on how many successes and failures they had, I had to make a roll on my end to see if they could do stuff. So there's a lot of wiggle room stuff there, but it was so cool to see it all unfold. Meanwhile, Odin I'm playing, I said y'all can choose what Odin does, because Odin's the player that wasn't there, and y'all can just say what he does as far as what y'all think he would do, and I'll be the judge of that, if that makes sense or whatever. And then he gets accidentally blinded by a fairy fire, which I know fairy fire doesn't blind, but it was repurposed as to be a flare. And tackled nothing. Odin was just flopping around. Everybody else kind of really pulled together to really hold down the fort, literally, and stop them from getting the flag. There was one last final thing where they're going to do the big launch to go up and get the flag, but the Clara knocked the explosive device that was going to launch Patricia up there, knocked it out of her hand, and completely thwarted it, did not score the flag at all. Boom, done. It was amazing. So that really felt like a combat. So you could kind of count that as a combat, but it's not full-blown combat. So, I'm saving that for the big final round. And there's all of that. And then we ended the session with some social espionage stuff. I wanted to give them a trial of social encounter stuff. So there's 4 players, and I gave 4 different scenarios for social encounters. And the rules were you had to each place each of you in one. You could only be in one, and you had to do them all, right? So one encounter, social encounter, and for dungeon masters out there, these are just a spectrum of different social encounters to kind of throw at your party members. But you had to buy a sword from somebody as cheap as you could. You had to steal a muffin from a bakery without them knowing it. You had to inspire a group of trainees that are about to join the army, and then you have to hit on somebody that they target. They specifically point out somebody, and you have to go interact with them and try and take them out on a date, or try and talk with them in some way, try and be charismatic and smooze people up, right? Those are the 4 different categories, and it was really hilarious to see them pair who's going with who. None of them wanted to do the hitting on somebody one, so they gave that to Odin, and we're going to start off next session with Odin doing that. How cool is that? But the rest of them had to choose between bartering for a sword, stealing a muffin, and inspiring a group of trainees. And so they're all talking with each other, and they look at Q, and Q is a Warforged. They don't know he's a Warforged yet. He is just a very literally robotic, blank, straight down the middle. Why would you, this is this and that is that, very factual type person. They're like, how on earth is he going to give an inspiring speech or a barter with anyone? He can't talk to anyone. This is okay, so he has to steal a muffin. No, but then so they all talked about it and strategized. It was really funny, and they ended up going like this. So Clara is going to buy a silver sword, and she used a bunch of trying to use her intelligence to kind of talk about how the sword's made, and she used information from Darius's past about thieves circles and different things he's done to be able to know about trade and stuff, and give him different bartering techniques. So she rolled, she was successful, just barely successful at her roll. Then stealing the muffin was hilarious. Darius went to go steal the muffin, and then Clara has this pet cat, which is magical, but they don't know that yet. And he goes, hey, can you tell your pet cat to go cause a distraction? And she's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, of course. Animal handling check, and she rolls a nat 1. So instead, there's a plate of muffins, which is the one thing that he needs. The cat tackles the muffins onto the other side of the countertop, and he's like, oh my gosh, oh no. So then I have him make an acrobatics check to flip over the counter. He's like, can I help out? And they're like, oh my God, there's a cat, which, yep, they cause a distraction, but the muffins are in a worse spot than they were. And then he's like, can I help you out? And she's like, yeah, oh my God, help, there's a cat. He like 23 acrobatics check to flip over the thing. Gets there. He wants to grab the cat and a muffin off the floor at the same time and like sneakily hide the muffin. So I'm trying to give him checks to give him just to see how the dice are going. If they goes well, I'm giving him +2s onto his next roll. If it goes bad, then he gets nothing, right? Also, before all of these social encounters, the rest of the group, just to keep them engaged, they could help in some way. Not doing the main task. They couldn't take the muffin themselves. They couldn't go buy the sword themselves. They couldn't talk to the person themselves, but they can kind of help them before they get into the thick of it. So he swoops over the counter, has a bad animal handling check. The cat's swirling all around him, but he has a over 20 sleight of hand. I think it was right at 20. A dirty 20. Sleight of hand check to slip the muffin into his pocket as this cat's swirling all around him, and he helps him out. Oh, thank you. And then he gets out of there. Done. Success. That's a critical success though, so worth twice as many points. And then the campaign. Wow, that would be a really weird ending to a campaign. Very quick campaign. The session ender was Q giving a speech to a bunch of future potential troops. Clara asked, she's like, can I look into the crowd and see if I like what kind of people are in this crowd? And so I had to make an insight check, and she got like a 17. I was like, this is like basically a high school assembly. These kids don't really want to be here. They're all like teenagers in age, and they're trying, this whole speech is to try and get them interested in joining the Mech Militia, but most of them probably won't. So but what's really funny, I should have said this first, Darius and Q had this awesome talk with each other. He's like, look, whatever you're about to say, you have to say the opposite. Don't talk about death. Don't talk about fighting. Don't talk about like dark stuff. Because Q is he's very like this. So then after he hears that there are a bunch of basically high schoolers, he's like, all right, forget everything I said. Talk about how crazy combat is. Show them cool stuff. Show them your cool tech arm. We'll do crazy stuff in the back. Just blow their minds. I don't know. Just do cool stuff. And then Q goes out there, and what I thought was going to be a persuasion check, he goes out there, he stands, he looks at everybody. And I told him there's like a podium in front of him he's standing at. And he goes, I just punched the podium with my arm as hard as I can and try and shatter it into as many pieces as possible. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Wow. This is where we're going with this. And they had a whole bunch of really cool role play stuff to kind of like talk to him beforehand and try and prep up this much stuff, because they knew Q was really bad at talking to people, and he's about to talk to an assembly of people. And so I was like, you know what? This is going to be an attack roll. This is what roll you're going to make for this. And so he just makes a, huge attack roll, adding on all this extra stuff. I was like, are you raging for this? He's like, yeah. So I gave him advantage, and then natural 20. And then and then he smashes. Oh, no. It wasn't a natural 20. It was like a 23 or something, super high. I was like, oh my God, yes, done. So that's a critical success. It's succeeded by more than 5. You smash the thing and it breaks up and open. I was like, what do you even say? He's like, this is why you want to join the army, to be able to what? And so it was like, we were all laughing and stuff. And he goes, now, Darius, Clara, now. And they're like, what do you mean? You just did the thing. So then he kind of puts them on the spot, and they didn't really know what to do. So Clara just has this little baby hologram that she produces. And then Q's like, vine magic. And he like tries to shoot a vine out from where Q punched a hole in the stage. And then I was like, all right, make a spell check with advantage. Go for it. He rolls a natural 20. Vine shoots out, flailing around. All the crowd's like, oh my God. And then I was like, and I tried to throw it back, because again, the spotlight should be on Q, right? So as a dungeon master, this is his time, and the players are adding in extra stuff. But a natural 20 from Darius into the mix, I didn't want him to also swoop in and steal the stage, steal the thunder, although it's a hilarious moment, all this stuff is great. I was like, oh my God, okay, I need you, Q, what are you doing with this vine? And he's like, I don't really know what I can do to a vine. I was like, you could swing on it, you could attack, you could do whatever you want. He's like, I just want to grab it, lift myself in there, and rip it in half and land on the stage. I was like, oh my God, yes. I was like, I want you to make this roll. I'm giving him as much stuff as I can as a dungeon master. I was like, make an athletics check with advantage, because I'm gonna be trying to give him another dice, and we're gonna add the bonuses you got from the round before added to this, so it's going to be basically advantage +4. Let's see what happens. And then he rolls 2 dice, gets a natural 20, and everyone loses it again. They're like, oh my God. So he's like swirling around like freaking Tarzan on this giant octopus tentacle in the center of this stage that these kids are now freaking out. He's swinging around, rips the vine in half, lands on the stage, and then Darius gets that cue and like dissipates the vine, and it all fades, and he goes, "This is why you join the Mech Militia," and then everyone just cheers and loses their mind. And it was absolutely crazy note to end on, and absolute huge success. So they got triple points for that, because that whole entire thing was just insane, and that's what we ended on the campaign with. So we're going to pick up next time with the fourth social challenge of Odin hitting on someone to try and swoo them off their feet, and then we go into the final round of the trials, which is 4v4 combat. So we'll see how that goes. But that is the session. Now it's late. I'm going to bed. Stay creative. Think outside the box. Peace.